And we'll get started. All right, let me share my screen. And once you can see it, it would be wonderful if you can drop me a quick yes in the chats that you can actually see my screen. I'll be keeping the chat open at all times. Wonderful, you can see my screen. That's great, thank you. Fantastic. So I will be keeping the chats open at all times so that I can actually, make sure that all of your queries and questions are answered. And we will be taking an active part in this webinar. So we'll be discussing things. There are a few things that can be controversial sometimes. So yeah, I am really excited and thrilled to hear your opinion on all of these things. We're all here to learn after all and spend some great time together. All right, let's get started. Wonderful. So today we'll speak about the 21st century skills. There are lots of buzzwords around these subjects, really. They are called future skills, 21st century skills, and Pearson has actually done a very extensive research on those. So this is what we're going to be, centering and cornering our discussion around because there are a lot of insights to be shared in that research, and there are lots of very interesting things that we have uncovered during it. So first of all, before we begin, just drop me a quick yes or no in the chat if you've ever heard about the skill gap. Do you know what a skill gap is? Have you ever heard about it? Is that the first time you're encountering it? No, Nellen hasn't heard. Robert has. Interesting. Gunhan has as well. Okay, great. Anyone else? Have you heard of a skill gap? Sam hasn't. Okay. Okay, great. Mumtaz hasn't. Okay, wonderful. So we have people who have heard about it. So you can probably help me and correct me if you think I haven't added something. And we have lots of people for whom it will be actually new information. Well, this is always exciting. Well, actually, skill gap is sort of a gap between, forgive me for the repetition, between what the employer, specifically in the employment. Now we're speaking exactly about the employment sector. When we're speaking about the either graduates or people who are entering the workforce who are to be employed, and what the employers actually want and what they require for the positions that they offer. So if these two things are unmatched, the level of skills of fresh graduates, of people who are just entering the workforce even before their graduation, and the requirements of the employees, if these two things are not matched, then that is called a skills gap. And do you think that, see right now on the screen, you can see that in the UAE specifically, the survey that was done by Khalij Times has revealed that there is actually a pretty large skills gap. So we have people also from Saudi Arabia, from Turkey. Do you think that problem also concerns those geographies as well? And Turkey and Saudi and the rest of the Middle East? I'm wondering what your thoughts are on this. Yeah, definitely. Okay. Yeah. Anyone else thinks that it concerns their geographies as well, and even around the world? I'm interested to know what you guys think. All right, so I still see that some people haven't changed their chat settings. Sorry, I forgot to mention a couple of house rules. Juju, you're absolutely correct everywhere. I think that's right. Ramesh, I see your hand. Just 1 second. Let me reiterate on the house rules. If you see my dog from behind, she's saying hi. She's excited to see everyone. She's my common co-moderator of the of all of my webinars. So no worries, Ramesh, no problem. So everyone, can you please change your settings in the chats to all panelists and attendees, all right? It would be very, very helpful because then everyone can see your answers, and that's really nice for everyone to see how it's, how you guys are thinking. Robert says it's true everywhere since markets always change. You're absolutely right. Can you also change your chat settings? So for everyone, just take a second to look at your chats. See that above type message here, there is this to row, and there is a drop down, blue drop down, saying that all panelists and attendees, it should say all panelists and attendees basically. Perfect, thank you so much. Thank you. That's wonderful. And hopefully you are connecting via, your computer, and hopefully the Netflix that you were watching earlier or YouTube are closed. I really hope to spend time with all of you, and hopefully you'll get some value out of this. All right, with that out of the way, and with a pretty general consensus that the skill gap is a ubiquitous problem, I'm happy to confirm, well, not necessarily happy, but that's the reality that we live in. Skills gap is actually found everywhere in the world. And the reason for that, Robar, you're actually right, the job markets do change pretty often. But on top of that, the university systems and the education systems are not agile enough to sort of cope up with these rapid changes. And also sometimes it's not just rapid enough, it's sometimes the education that is provided is quite obsolete. So we have to be on top of that curve and try to maintain upskilling ourselves to make sure that we can actually overcome that skills gap. But we will see how it actually affects our lives in light of the automation and in light of everything that's happening with us in the era of emerging technologies. It's actually a lot to uncover. So here's a few interesting things that come from U-Government and BAIT, the skills gap that is looked at in the Middle East and North Africa. So if we look at the overall ease of finding candidates with the required skills in the MENA region, right? We're looking at senior positions and mid-career and even junior positions. So the general consensus, again, that we see, it's either very difficult and extremely difficult, very difficult and just difficult for senior positions. And for mid-career to junior positions, it's also either very difficult or just difficult. Do you think that should be this way? Do you think that ideally in the ideal world scenario, it should be with way more than half, almost actually 70%, 70%, more than 70% that's of difficulty finding the candidates for senior positions, and almost 50% finding candidates for junior positions and mid-career positions. Do you think it should be that difficult in an ideal world scenario? It's a very controversial topic, so feel free to share your thoughts. There's no right or wrong answer whatsoever. MENA is quite a unique region. That's true. That's true. But Robar, actually quite a similar result came from the US as well and Europe. So we're not alone in that sense in the similar statistics. In the sense that you bring in everyone in. Yeah, so we'll speak about it in the second part of this webinar, actually. So this webinar has two parts. The first one is today, and the next one will be on the 30th of May. We'll do it at 2 p.m. UAE time. So feel free to join, and we'll have the discussion in terms of actually, whether we continue bringing people in or that dynamic has changed. Because you were absolutely right about 10 years ago, but I think now at this moment, it's a very different story. It's actually interesting how that's changed. Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right, so I'm not sure that I'm getting any consensus on this, so I will kind of take this forward. I don't think personally that it should be that difficult, at least for the mid-career and junior positions. It's very clear that, for senior positions, obviously sometimes the set of skills are very unique. So it's quite difficult to find people who are matching these skill sets required and the whole profile. However, for mid-career and junior positions, especially for junior positions, I don't think that it should be that difficult, because again, almost half the employers, and there's a lot of employers that were surveyed, said that it's extremely difficult or difficult for them to find. So again, and we have a huge unemployment rate as well among the fresh graduates. If I'm not mistaken, in the UAE, on average, it takes about 6 months to a year for a fresh graduate to find a job. That was a statistic from a couple of years ago. I'm not sure if it is the same now. I'm sure now it's going to be even worse with the COVID situation. But ideally, with so many graduates going out of the universities and the available jobs, it shouldn't be that difficult. So there is some issue with the skills that we're acquiring in the process. So how to rectify that? There is a couple of ways. And another very interesting statistic is that we see that the companies now are changing their approach to hiring as well. So now we see that Goldman Sachs, Apple, Amazon, even Google has also confirmed that recently they're hiring, they're hiring the candidates without the college degree. Now, this is a very controversial subject, and I want to know everyone's opinion on this. Do you think it's important to have a college degree in order to be successful in your career? Drop me a quick yes or no, and we'll discuss further, especially with the current realities with the skill gaps. Sam says yes, Salam says no, Najud says no. Okay, interesting. Basma says no. Does anyone, Gigi also says no. Wow, you guys are very progressive. Gunhan says successful, yes. Interesting. Necessary, no. Yes, I think I agree with you actually, Gunhan. Soft skills are needed more than the degree. Ah, Mumtaz, I think you are a little bit of a converted already in terms of the the subject that we're going to be covered. Answer should be nuanced. Both are required. Yeah, you're right, Ramesh. You're absolutely right. The majority of successful people do not have degrees. I'm not sure if that statistic is very true, but you're right. Some of very successful people do not have the degree. However, I don't think we can apply it to all people, because there is a very interesting trick, is that, have you all heard of the bell curve, the distribution of the bell curve? And if we look at that distribution, the people who are really, really successful, they would be successful because of the unique characteristics that they have. And that's a small, very small percentile that they are fitting in with these unique characteristics. And because of that, they will be successful no matter what, whether they have a degree, whether they were college or school dropouts, it doesn't depend on that. So I don't think that this model can be replicated across all people. So personally, call me a little bit old school. I actually graduated from health. I think a lot of people on this webinar already know me, so I've skipped the long and boring and slightly, self-conceited introduction of myself, but I've actually graduated from health. And you're absolutely right, Robert. University provides space for critical thinking. Yeah, and I was actually getting at that exactly, because even if your degree does not match your actual profession, because my degree has absolutely nothing to do with what I'm currently doing, you're absolutely right. The information you can get from anywhere, but that's that pathway, that learning pathway that university builds in your in your character, I think that's very important. Now, whether we can replicate it or not with personal study, I'm not sure yet. I don't think the current systems are apt for it yet. However, I also don't think that the universities in their current form are emphasizing enough on these skills. I think hard skills are extremely important. You're absolutely right, Gio. You're mirroring my thoughts exactly. The curriculum is not apt for that yet. As much as I am completely an adept of the importance of hard skills, especially for certain professions like engineering, doctors, lawyers, we can't go without hard skills. It's impossible. I really don't want a doctor that is an amazing critical thinker, but can't close my suture. So yeah, that would be a pretty bad outcome. However, that emphasis on hard skills currently does not teach you the soft skills that you need. And let's see, actually all of these companies are placing a very high emphasis on the soft skills. And that doesn't mean that the hard skills do not matter anymore. And we'll look at that in the details and how the jobs are changing and everything. It just means that we need to see a little bit of a shift, and we can arrange for that shift ourselves, actually, because we are people who are responsible for our education. There's no one to blame. I don't believe in blaming the system, blaming education. You have your own hands and your own wonderful brains. So we are here to actually initiate that shift. And Robert says that, true, I'm from the education sector after a decade of commercial work, and there's a debate in university about this now. Yes, you're absolutely right. Meha says the good thing is that it's never too late to improve or master soft skills. Absolutely. I was just going to drive at that. Even if we are and I don't like the saying, but for the sake of this, discussion, even if we are the victims of the system, where we didn't get enough soft skills education, we are the masters of our own education at this moment. And we have to, with the shift to more personalized education, and I spoke about it in some of the other webinars I had, with the shift of that control that the learner has over their own learner journey, and that which mandates success of the actual program. I think this is actually that fragmented education can serve a great purpose in that sense. So yeah, we are always in charge of our future. And let's look at the next slide. Sorry, I'm just going to get to Rob Burrell's comments before that. He says, theory and history plus practice and research should be supplemented by industry knowledge. I really like your formula. I think I'm exactly behind that. I absolutely agree with you. See, even Sheikh Abdullah bin Zayed calls for new emphasis, and he's from the Ministry of Education. He says that we have to teach our citizens new skills and not to settle for skills in the current market that will not equip us for future markets. So even he recognizes a skills gap. And I think the importance here is that, us in the Middle East, people in Turkey as well, all over the world, we see that emergence of technologies that are going to dominate, the market actually, and they're going to dominate and dictate their terms of how we work and how we get things done. And because of that, even whatever skills we have now, they're not going to be relevant. So how to actually keep updated within that scheme of change and within that dynamic environment, let's actually look at that. So even our government admits that there is a problem. So definitely we know that we need to do something. Now, I've touched briefly on unemployment in the Middle East, and let's look at the realities, the three realities, or sort of the shaping factors that affect the current Middle East employment landscape. So first of all, we're looking at high rates of youth unemployment. This is very important, as I mentioned to you, because I think youth unemployment in the Middle East region stands for 31%. See, I wasn't too far off with that. And university graduates are making up nearly 30% of the total unemployed pool, which is huge. Again, remember that first graph that we looked at with the how hard or how difficult it is to find people that match the positions of employers. That's huge. 30% is almost a third of everyone who's graduating. So in that sense, having a 2/3% of a chance of being employed, which is like 66%, that's very low in my opinion, and especially now with the COVID situation, that's going to be even worse. Secondly, a very important point is that we have a decreasing shares of public sector employment. If some of you are familiar with specifically Middle Eastern landscape, we used to have very, very robust public sector, and the jobs in public sector were extremely attractive for the higher salaries, job security, the benefits. The work in the government was sort of the ultimate goal of the career, and that doesn't mean that that's going to change. I think it will still be very, very attractive to people, but I think other companies are now providing very similar opportunities, making it a lot more diversified. Now, a very interesting point is low but increasing levels of female workforce participation. So originally, and I'm not sure how the situation is in Turkey with that, our guests from Turkey, Gunhan, and the rest of you guys, Robert as well, what do you guys think about that? Is the workforce participation in Turkey, female workforce participation, is the rate different? Because in the Middle East, the gender gap is actually quite wide across the region, from 40% in Kuwait and Qatar to nearly 80% in Algeria and Jordan. Yeah, you're right, Gunhan. It's probably not as wide of a gap as we have in the Middle East for sure. I don't think 80% in Algeria and Jordan. I actually haven't looked at that statistic in a while, and that shocks me. So if you're a woman, 80% chances that you're sitting at home, that's pretty drastic. Hi, Mazen. Great to see you back here as well. Wonderful. Gunhan says, in high tech, male dominance is worldwide, though. Absolutely, I absolutely agree. We have increasing level of participation, our Zagur says. Wonderful, yeah. So do we. I think in the UAE specifically, the that gap is not very large, and I think UAE is one of the few countries where the difference between the pay for females and males is very negligent. So, you know, there is no discrimination of the gender, which I'm personally extremely happy about. But I think that's a great achievement for the countries. And I think in Saudi Arabia as well. And, you know, guys from Saudi today, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in Saudi also the female participation is increasing in the workforce. Is that correct? Yeah, Mumtaz is saying, wonderful. I think there are some initiatives now to bolster the female participation. Mumtaz says in all sectors. That's wonderful. Yeah, that's very nice to see. So because of that, obviously, as Roba also mentioned, all of these forces are changing the landscape of the Middle East employment and even anywhere in the world, really. So because of that, again, remember that the skills that we have, even if the systems have given us the best skills, because of how quickly and rapidly the landscape is changing, I think, unfortunately, we need to make sure to keep upskilling ourselves. Well, fortunately, because I think it's a great process, but I think we cannot settle with what we have at any point in life in terms of education. We should always be hungry for that knowledge to be able to stay current and sought after in terms of the job opportunities and even relevant, you know, in your profession. And we'll take an interesting test a bit later. But we'll discuss the actual survey results that Pearson has conducted, and you guys will all be able, pardon me, it was a long day, to see how your jobs will be changing. I think it's a very interesting experiment, and we'll take a look at that. But for now, I think that's interesting to understand these forces and understand that we always need to prepare for a change. And people who are not upskilling themselves, unfortunately, become obsolete quite easily. And, you know, there is a lot of doom and gloom in terms of automation. I'm sure you've all heard that, you know, all of our jobs will be robotized and automated and we'll all be out of jobs. And while the statistic can be pretty scary, and let's look at those in a little bit of a further detail, 50% of today's most sought after jobs will be completely eliminated by 2030, 2040. And that's according to the report by World Bank. It's very recent, it's of 2020 actually. Sorry, Salah, I didn't notice your comment. You're saying in KSA it's increasing big time. That's wonderful to hear. Fantastic. So we all need to prepare for that change as well. We don't know how that will affect the job market. Positively, of course. So think about it, 50%, half of today's most sought after jobs that you're applying to, that you're thinking will be very successful, will be completely eliminated, which is a very scary statistics. And we also think that, well, according to McKinsey's Global Institute report, we see that the robots could replace 800 million jobs by 2030. That's globally though. And also 6 out of 10 current jobs have more than 30% of activities that are technically automatable. Now, first of all, I want to ask you, I think most of you, if not all of you, are working currently. And I want to ask you, do you think that you have some activities in your day-to-day jobs right now that can be automated? For me, it's definitely yes. There are some, you know, administrative activities that I think can be automated with the better systems that can support that. So I wonder how it is for you. Do you have any of the activities that can be automated? You can drop me a quick yes or no in the chat. Yes. Yes, unfortunately, yes. Anita, that's not necessarily unfortunately. Yeah, it's actually fortunately. And we'll get into why. Jijo, yes, yes, Sam, yes from Sam. Wonderful. Well, that's actually not a bad thing if you think about it. So Gunhan says no, unless AI is incredible. So not any single part of your job can be automated. What do you do, Gunhan? I actually am thinking of a career change right now. Ramesh says construction. Maha says our test became online. They started and finished automatically. Wow, yeah. Textile agent. Yeah, I think, well, AI, yeah, I think art and AI at this moment are not really best friends. So at this point, I don't think that can be a huge automation, but some things that you do, maybe some accounting things, some aspects of your work at this moment can be automated. Analytics, yeah, some bits of analytics can be automated. Gunhan says, used to be computer engineer. Interesting. Why the change of career? I'm very intrigued. Mumtaz, teaching cannot be automated. You're absolutely right. It cannot. But again, I'm not saying that all professions will be automated, but read this carefully. 6 out of 10 of current jobs have more than 30% of activities that technically can be automated. And that, which means that, for example, I'm also in education. I'm creating educational content. I'm putting together the solutions for all of you to enjoy. I'm actually teaching one of the courses as well. We'll get to that a bit later. But some of the activities that I'm doing on a daily basis, for example, filling in some Excel sheets, some of those can be automated. So this is what I'm talking about. We shouldn't be all terrified about this automation. I think it can actually be very helpful, but how to stay on top of that competition while this happens, we'll get to in a second. Understood, Gunhan. Thank you for sharing. Robert says there's a threshold on how much digital can mirror the physical. Absolutely, there's definitely a threshold. And Anita says humans backing technology is the way forward. I like your idea. Let's look at that in the further detail. Now, I want to give you a little bit of a task. I will give you a few minutes, I think 3 or 4, and I want you to write top 5 skills you need to thrive in the next, I would say, 10 years. Just you can drop me a message in the chat. Again, make sure that it's to all panelists and attendees so everyone can see your guesses, and I'll give you 2 minutes for you to actually come with 5 skills, top 5 skills that you think are the most important for you to maintain the competitive advantage in the next 10 years. And we'll look at this list of top 10 from 2015 and from 2020 later on after we're done with this, and we'll see how that changes. So take a few minutes. I'll just give you some time and we'll see what the results are in a bit. I'm hearing from all the same people. I'm going to start calling out names. So you guys be a little bit more active. I understand it's getting late in the evening and I appreciate you spending time with us, but I want to see all of your thoughts and we can learn from each other. I'm certain of that. Robert is giving the answer ready. I'll give it a few more minutes and then we'll discuss. I really like your list, Robert. I think a lot of the things will find its place in the skills that we'll see here. Interesting, Arzigur. Nice. Thank you, Mumtaz. Resilience. I like that. We'll read all of your answers. So I'm just giving other people also to have some time to jot those down as well. I think I will give you all until 5:35 my time. So another 2 minutes and then we'll delve into the answers. Thank you, Anita. Thank you for your answers. Thank you, Sam. Interesting. Interesting. It's very insightful. Very tech-oriented, Gunhan. I know who would have loved that. Thank you, Abir. Jude as well. Wow, wonderful. Having a lot of answers. Thank you, Salam. Thank you, Ramesh. Nice. Great answers, everyone. Give it another minute and we'll actually discuss all of those. We have a lot to go through. Thank you, Gijo. Okay, thank you, Salah. Nujud, you have raised your hand. I will get to everyone's answers. Do you have a question? You can type out your question in the chats. All right, let me get to that. Gunhan says AI programming, big data analysis. Robert says agility, flexibility, adaptability, critical thinking, analysis, humanities. I love the answer of critical thinking and analysis, and agility and flexibility. I think all of your answers are pretty spot on. Sorry, I think I went back a slide. Critical thinking, communication skills, creativity, flexibility. Arzugur, I think you're spot on with that. Mumtaz as well, problem solving and decision making. I love your list. I think all of the things that you've mentioned, you will see in the list that is necessary to thrive in the fourth industrial revolution, how it was titled in the Future of Jobs report by World Economic Forum. Resilience, Arzugur, absolutely. I love that. I think in the world of constant change, resilience is extremely important. Anita says AI, data analysis, coding and programming, psychology, and solution oriented. I love that point about solution orientation. I think that's very important. And I think we can also call it something like systems thinking and thinking wider, or sort of like, instead of thinking vertically about a particular product, thinking horizontally and thinking of leveraging the solution. Problem solving. I think that's very important, Anita. I think you've touched on a very good point here. Sam says data analysis, customer service. Sam, you're also absolutely right. Customer service will be extremely important. I think people are getting more and more picky with the service they receive. Business strategy is also very important. Strategic thinking, that strategic outlook. Wonderful answers. Gunhan is adding RPA, creative thinking, and programming languages like Python. Yes, I think all of these hard skills are extremely important in the future as well. But try to think industry neutral and try to think something that will apply to everyone. Abir says critical thinking, analysis, adaptability, psychology, and conflict management. Interesting. I like that human element that we bring back into the machinery. Najut says flexibility, coding, and programming. Nice. Nilan says communication skills will always be there as long as human race lasts. Absolutely. I think communication skills are one of the most important and also one of the most difficult to master. So have you met these people who are naturally good communicators, and the ones who are not? They might be extremely smart and extremely insightful, but they might not be able to convey the ideas as well. And that is a huge barrier. Ramesh says leadership, critical thinking, contemporary soft skills, attitude versus aptitude, like that. Common sense. We all might require a little bit of that. Diversity and inclusion, humanity skills. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, with increased globalization, the inclusion will be, and diversity will be one of the top sought after skills as well. Creative thinking, I like that, Gijo, thank you. Critical thinking, effective communication skills, writing skills, decision making. Slicing, ability to apply more disciplines of project management, science, art on projects, ability to align IT and digital transformation projects. I love that. Make technology serve the food production. Interesting. I would like you to elaborate on that. What do you mean? Jude says that by mistake. No worries. Long-term strategic planning. Interesting. You guys have given amazing answers. Thank you so much for sharing. Now let's take a look at what the World Economic Forum says. So in 2015, these were the top 10 skills that were needed to thrive in the fourth industrial revolution. So think a few years from then, say 5 to 10 years from 2015, these are the most sought after skills. So we look at complex problem solving, coordinating with others, people management, critical thinking, a lot of you mentioned that, negotiation, quality control, that was a big point, and pay attention to this one. Service orientation, judgment and decision making, active listening, and creativity. A lot of you mentioned creativity as well. And now in 2020, we're looking at a slightly different looking list. And I want you to study these two lists and tell me what is drastically different about it, because there are a few things that are completely different. So can you spot any difference? We'll play the Find 5 Difference game. There's some things that are similar, some things that are very different. So let's see. What do you think is different? Purposefully not going to name any of these things at the moment, because then it ruins all the fun. Number 7, Arziger, do you mean in 2020 or in 2015? In 2020, EI, emotional intelligence, nice. In 2020, yes, judgment and decision making. Cognitive flexibility, nice, Mumtaz. I think some of you also mentioned flexibility, if not you yourself, actually. Something else? What has gone up a lot? Critical thinking, correct, Abir. That's absolutely right. Brain skills, cognitive and emotional thinking, right gun hand. These went up a lot. And another thing, what is very much present here in 2015 and what's completely missing out of 2020 and why? Quality control. Rovarl, you were the first. Why do you think it's absent in 2020? You're absolutely right. I think I gave you a little bit of a hint as I was reading the list from 2020, from 2015, sorry. Why do you think it's absent in the, it will be automated? AI can do that. Absolutely. You're absolutely right. So you can even see that in the skills that are needed in 2020, the quality control is already something that will be automated. More computer, less mistakes. You're absolutely right, Abir. Wonderful. Well, that was a lot of fun. Thank you everyone for participating with me on this particular activity. We'll move forward now. Let me just summarize a little bit and look into some of the conclusions on the skills that are important in 2020. We look at complex problem solving. A lot of you mentioned that. Critical thinking, creativity. Again, a lot of you have mentioned that. People management, coordinating with others. So teamwork, you have said that as well. Emotional intelligence, a lot of you mentioned that too. Judgment and decision making, some of you mentioned decision making too. Service orientation, you guys said customer service. Negotiation and flexibility, that cognitive flexibility. All that I'm seeing here is that we need to be putting human back into human, because a lot of the things that can be done by machines will be done by machines, and there is a special value of that extra added human approach when we're looking at the world where a lot of the things are automated, hopefully will be automated. And now, again, don't look at it as I'm completely disgracing the hard skills. These are extremely important, and we need to learn all of those, like you mentioned, you know, AI and data analytics and programming and Python and coding. I think this will definitely be among the top of the skills that are important from the hard skills. I think that's really important. But what we need to understand is if we have two candidates in the job market, one with all of the amazing hard skills, but cannot communicate their ideas, cannot, you know, work with others, cannot really showcase their charisma and, you know, persuade people of something, but they have a fantastic hard skills. And then there's a person that has also very, very strong hard skills, but has all of these critical thinking, problem solving, you know, creativity when it comes to decision making, etc., etc. When they have these skills, it, you know, it definitely means that they will be propelled in their career. Anyway, with automation or without, you know, all of these skills have always been extremely valuable in managers and people who are higher up, people who are setting the strategic outlook. Some of you have mentioned strategy. So this is why this becomes really, really important. And the good thing is that if there are, if you think that you're a very technical person, or if you think that we can always improve the soft skills, and I think we definitely can all work on our soft skills, there's always a way to do that. It's not unteachable. You know, we all can definitely improve and prepare ourselves for the upcoming changes in the job market. All right, and now I want to go in the, I think the most fun and experimentative part of this webinar. Remember how we spoke about the doom and gloom and 40 to 60% of the current jobs that are, 50% of the current jobs that are really sought after will be automated. So it's not all as bad. And Pearson, in collaboration with Nesta, has conducted the research called the Future of Skills. So we are looking at about 40 to 60% of the jobs of 2030 have not been invented yet. An example for that can be a social media manager. You know, about 10 years ago, if you were to give me a job description of a social media manager, I would laugh at it because I would think that this is ridiculous. Someone is managing the ads in Facebook or managing ads on Instagram. Instagram probably wasn't even there at that point. So it would be very, very you know, strange at that point. But now it's a very sought after profession. There is, you know, there are courses that people visit to become social media managers. There are different, you know, positions that are open in the market. Marketing is one of the most, you know, sought after positions at that moment. So now it's become a reality for sure. And we can see as a result of our report that skills that are likely to be in greater demand in the future, a lot of you mentioned that, so interpersonal skills, higher order cognitive skills, and system skills. Remember, some of you mentioned that sort of decision making and solution orientation. I think Salam, if I'm not mistaken, has said that. So that solution orientation, that's really important. That's systems thinking skills. Your ability to sort of look at the bird's eye view at the strategic level of things and create a solution using all of the components of your systems. And same thing with higher order cognitive skills. That is basically a fancy way of saying referring to critical thinking and problem solving. So these, according to our research, are extremely important. Now, I'm not going to go into the methodology of the research. We'll look at that in the next webinar that will happen on the 30th. But for now, I want us all to experiment and play a little bit with this report. So you can go to this link, and I'm going to paste this link in the chats. So you can click on this link and select either US or UK. It doesn't really matter. And you know, add some of your details. It's going to ask you for a name and for your profession and your age, and see how your job will change by 2030. And that is actually, I think, a very important experiment. And you can actually, you know, promote that link to your friends and your colleagues as well, because they get a prognosis of how their job will change and what is the chance of growth that they have by 2030, and what skills they need to master, you know, to be able to be competitive, to remain competitive in that position. So, for example, for a physical scientist, Mumtaz, you said that the scientists and teachers cannot be replaced. You're absolutely right. So here we see a confirmation of that. There will be a 65.3% chance of growth by 2030. But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't upskill ourselves. We should look at the fluency of ideas, deductive reasoning, and originality as our primary skills to build on to remain sought after and competitive in 2030. So I'll stop talking for now. I've done a lot of that. I'll give you all a few minutes, and once you actually get your results, you can paste them in the chat and we'll discuss them. And I think that'll be a very interesting experiment. And then we'll look at the recommendations on what we actually should do with all this information. So take your time, and I'm looking forward to seeing your responses here. It's very simple. It will not take you very long at all. Gigi says fluency of ideas, deductive reasoning, and originality. If you can copy the whole thing, it'd be very interesting to see your the profession that you've pasted there and the chance of growth as well. So if you can copy kind of the same thing that you see here, that would be very, very helpful for us to look at the whole thing in detail, because then we see which professions have the chance of higher chance of growth and which have lower, etc., and what to do with it. Your other textiles, garments, and related trade job has 35.1% chance of growth. So again, don't worry about it. Artist job has 94.1% chance of growth. That's wonderful, Robert. originality, fluency of ideas, and management of personnel resources. So a lot of these things that we saw, because if you remember the skills that we looked at the World Economic Forum, these are sort of general across all professions. And now our research helps you see the skills specifically for your profession. Sam. Interesting. Technology design, speech clarity, transportation. Your travel agent's job has 48.1% chance of growth. That's wonderful. Very interesting. Salam, if you can copy the rest of the descriptions there also, because we want to see also the percentage of growth as well. Juju, it's a social worker's job has 58.7 chance of growth. And also we look at fluency of ideas, deductive reasoning, and originality. And if you click on what do these mean, you can actually get a detailed explanation on what these skills actually mean and get a direction on how to start working on those. But I will also give you a direction on how to start working on those in a while. Interesting. I'll give you all a few more minutes. I'm looking at the time. I'm just being mindful of it. So I'll give you a few more minutes to conclude this exercise. I think it's very interesting to see how different professions have chances of growth. I'm actually very surprised by the artists. I mean, not surprised that I thought it was going to be lower, but 94 or 91% chance of growth. I don't remember. 94.1. That's remarkable. Skills that would prepare you most for your job in 2030, fluency of ideas, deductive reasoning. Your management consultants and business analyst job has 54.8% of chance of growth. Yeah, but that's wonderful. You just need to look at the fluency of ideas, deductive reasoning, and originality. That's really, really helpful, I think. So soft skills you see are applicable across all professions. Ken says, skills that will prepare you for the future, originality, fluency of ideas, management of personnel as well. So teamwork and coordination with people that we saw in the World Economic Forum. 60.3% arts officers. Interesting. Thank you for sharing. Ramesh says fluency of ideas. What about the rest of the exercise, Ramesh? Fluency, deductive reasoning, originality. Robert gives a very, very insightful comment saying that the more we automate, the more we should be asking the fundamental questions. How should we live? And artists will help to frame that. I think I love that. Yeah, absolutely. I think without art, a lot of the things will become a lot less colorful and a lot less interesting. Quantity surveyor's job has a 52.8% chance of growth. Wonderful. So we're all pretty much on the safe side, but that doesn't mean that we should stop working on our ideas and we should stop working on improving ourselves and our soft skills. And no matter what position you're in, I think you always can find something that can be helpful for you in the soft skills education. All right, I think I'll move on to the next slide. If you want to keep posting in the chat, I will definitely be reading this out later when we get to the question and answer, but thank you all for participation. I think this activity was very insightful for all of us. Now, what do we do with all this information? I think it's important, as we said, to not blame the system and to remove that responsibility from placing it all on the institutions and employers, saying that, you know, only the employers and the institutions should prepare us for this change. I don't think this is true. I think the responsibility equally lies on all of us, the individuals who need to focus on developing their uniquely human skills, on top of course, making sure to stay relevant in the profession and working on the hard skills as well. Employers who need to learn how to identify and develop talent, as well as institutions who need to become more agile and develop pedagogies to support dynamic knowledge and skill development. Now, I actually think that I have come to you with an answer for that very first or potentially even second point on the recommendation. So yours truly is happily running the program that is, you know, a never before seen offering from Pearson Professional. For now, for the next 2 minutes is going to be a very shameless plug of what we do. And that can be boring, and that can be sometimes unexpected in the webinars like that. And I need to, you know, put that disclaimer that I wouldn't have otherwise said it if I didn't believe in the effectiveness of this program. Could be a little bit biased because I am teaching most of the workshops there, but I can guarantee you that you'll definitely bring home some great value out of this program, because we'll be looking at 3 important themes. It's a 4-week program, and we're looking at decision-making, teamwork, and resilience. And within these modules, we also have 3 workshops. So each module takes about a week. And during each week, there is 1 workshop that we look at. We look at very interesting things. We look at working remotely, managing conflicts, negotiations, you know, decision-making, critical thinking, which all of these skills you saw have been mentioned in our report, as well as the World Economic Forum report. So with that in mind, I think even if you find that you are very, very much skilled in terms of the soft skills, I think the discussions that we'll be having like in the workshop, pretty much like today, but a lot more involved and a lot more hands-on, because we'll all be having our cameras on and we'll all be feeling like we're at a round table, trying to educate and upskill ourselves and build on the ideas of each other. I think you'll find these extremely valuable. I'm going to be sharing some of the resources that I've accumulated over the years of, you know, conducting the webinars and attending the webinars of my team as well. Something like, you know, communication styles, the negotiation secrets, how to get to a yes, etc. And at the end of it, the very interesting part is that you'll be creating sort of a personal development plan, and we'll discuss it and discover it together and sort of set very clear goals for you. And then we'll follow up with you later to see how you're doing and if you need any support. So again, it's a very unique offering. It's a Pearson only program that has never been mentioned before at all. Let me know if you're interested in it. I'll be happy to share further details with you. And again, I'll be teaching 2 out of the 3 workshops, and the other instructor is Gary Smith, who's amazing in terms of the soft skills instruction as well. He's one of our best instructors, and the mindset approach, he's also teaching some of our entrepreneurship courses. So it's a great company. It's going to be a great fun, and I'm sure you will take something very, very useful. If you liked the session today, I'm sure you will enjoy the sessions that we have in this course as well. And also, it is offered at a never before seen price for our courses because of the current situation, and because it's also a shorter course and sort of like a Ramadan offering that we decided to bring forward to the community. So it's something that will be lucrative for you, I'm sure. So yeah, with that being said, I'm done with the shameless plug. Let me know if you have any questions in the chats. I'm happy to answer those. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the session today as well. I'll stop sharing the screen, and I'll check on you in the chats. Thank you very much, Robert. I'll also stay safe. Thank you, Arzagur. Your nursery education role has a chance of 75.1% chance of growth, which is wonderful. Wonderful profession. Now, if you don't have any questions, feel free to drop from the session. That will be the wrap of it for today. Thank you very much, Najid, for your feedback. I hope you enjoyed the session today and you like the information that we provided. We'll be definitely sending you the recording of this webinar as well as the slides. Thank you, Ramesh. We'll be sending you the course details as well. Thank you, Ken. Keep safe, everyone. Thank you, Akram. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Mazen. I appreciate your feedback. Thank you so much. Thank you, Salah. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed the session. I'm glad you found it fruitful. Thank you, Jujo. Happy to have more of those. Thank you, Abir. It's very heartwarming for me to hear this feedback. I really love these webinars. So we'll be definitely connecting with all of you. I'll be following up and sending the email, and we'll be sharing all of the details. Thank you, Maha. Thank you, Akram. You can all connect with me on LinkedIn as well. If you just hold on 1 second, I'll be giving you my LinkedIn handle. So you can all connect with me and ask further questions. We can always collaborate and find each other. I think it's always good to stay in touch. So just hold on a second. I'll drop down the handle. Thank you, Akram. There is myself. And there it is, goes directly in the chats. There you go. Feel free to add me. I would be really thrilled to connect with all of you and continue our conversation there also. It was really, really nice to have that interaction and participation from all of you. I absolutely love it when we share all these opinions. Thank you, Elson. I apologize if I mispronounced the name. Stay safe, Akram. Thank you.